Hi, I'm DJ Natalie, and let's plan your wedding. If you're watching this video, it's because you're already at the part where you might feel really stressed out, you might be in the weeds, and you might not know how all of the pieces are coming together in your wedding. And if that is the case, good news, you're in the right place. What we're going to do today is take all of the information that you have so far and put it together foundationally so that we can start to build your timeline. Now, this timeline that we're going to build today is just the core timeline, which starts at the ceremony, a little bit before the ceremony, and ends at the last song of the night. What you're going to want to do is add in, if you're using a wedding planner, they should do this for you. If you're not using a wedding planner, you're going to want to add in the other pieces of the timeline. So, for example, if you have a rehearsal the night before, and then a dinner or a welcome reception or something like that, that information is going to go on the timeline. If you're having a brunch the next day, that information will go on the timeline. If you have a glam squad doing your hair and makeup, you have certain things going on while you're getting ready, photography stuff before that, that stuff you're going to want to add into the timeline. But for right now, what we're doing is we are going to do the core of like, what is the wedding going to be? This is the core deal of what it's going to look like, how it's all going to come together, and then everything else you just add on top of it. So whatever is relevant to you beyond that, feel free to add on top of that. I want to talk about a couple things before we get started. You may or may not be using a wedding planner. If you're using a wedding planner, they should send a timeline out to your other vendors. If you are not using a wedding planner, you are going to want to send this out to all of your vendors. And here is something that I will suggest. Whether you're using the template that I created or not, make sure that you have the names, contact information, and Instagram handles are good too, of all of your vendors. And that is both the company that you booked, but also the actual person that's coming out. So sometimes you book just a person directly. If you call me to be your DJ and you're like, DJ Natalie, then it's DJ Natalie and that's the information. Some people book me through another agency and they would say Greenline Talent, and they would say, Greenline Talent is the DJ company, DJ Natalie is the DJ. DJ Natalie's contact information is what you want on the timeline because DJ Natalie is the one showing up. So that sounds very basic, but you would be very surprised that when things get really stressful and everybody's in the weeds, they forget those basic things. So you want to make sure that you have that information there as well. You also want to send a finalized timeline out. The best way to do this is to send a the pre-timeline out to all your vendors and ask them to look it over and see if they have anything to add or change. Then you will go to take their feedback and change it however you feel necessary to do so. And then from there, you will send a finalized timeline to everybody. Now, what I suggest is I think a lot of times people think they're helping by either blind copying or sending it out separately so that they're not getting spammed by all the other people. But the truth is that the wedding vendor team, what I like to call your dream team, is we are a team. We work together. The videographer might need to plug into the DJ equipment to be able to get the sound. The DJ can't start a first dance or a speech without the photographer being ready to shoot. The way that a lot of us do marketing to get other business is through social media and other options. And so to be able to connect with somebody that we might not talk to, like if we post something, we like to also connect everybody who's on the post, who's on the team. So I, as a DJ, don't really interact very much with the floral people, but I want to tag them if I have a beautiful picture that either has their floral in it, or even if it doesn't, and it just is like, hey, I'm doing a blog about this beautiful wedding that we just did, and it was so much fun, and we were on the dance floor all night. By the way, these were the vendors, this was the dress, this was the florist, that was all the information. So it actually is extraordinarily helpful for all of the vendors to have each other's contact information, also so that if we need anything before the wedding, we can reach out before and we're not scrambling the day of. Sometimes, it is really important to do that. If you don't have a wedding planner, you want to make sure that you have everybody connected, okay? So what is this video? This video is akin to, if I'm your DJ, we are going to do a production call about 3 months out, and we're going to go over everything that you've decided about your wedding, put all the pieces together, create the pre-timeline, and add music to those moments that you don't have it yet. And what ends up happening a lot of the time is if somebody either doesn't have a planner or they have like a 30-day planner, so they talk to me before they talk to the planner, is that they've made 100,000 decisions, everything's all over the place, they don't quite know how it's all going to come together, and it's really stressful and overwhelming. And if that's you, that's okay. We're going to fix that today. But what happens is they come to me as their DJ, because we have to put the music and put everything together, and we can't add the music to the moments if you don't have it all drawn out. So what ends up happening is I help them figure all that out, and then we add the music to it after. So what I found is that that service, I guess, it's not really a service, it's just included in what I do, has been extraordinarily valuable to pretty much all my couples. They've all said, I wish I would have talked to you 6 months ago or a year ago. I wish that I would have known this. I wish I would have, I'm so thankful. I feel so much better. I see it coming together. I feel so much more peaceful, things like that. If that is you, and you are feeling overwhelmed, or if you're newly engaged and you don't actually have all the information to be doing this video yet, I would like to invite you to check out the Wedding Lab, which is an online course that I created to help people plan their own wedding. It's linked below as well. You can click on that. It's just where that's the first step. It's the how we're gonna go ahead and build a foundation for the entire wedding planning process, and then that feeds into this where we are today, which is how we're gonna put the timeline together and communicate that information to all the vendors and make everything come together in our dream wedding. Get ready to take a lot of notes and make a lot of decisions, because some of the things that I'm going to say is not going to work for you, and that's okay. But this is I'm sharing. You can use the information and how I'll explain how I'm doing this, so you can make whatever decisions are best for you based on your space, your likes and dislikes, and things like that. Okay. Also, before I get started, please like and subscribe. It helps a lot. And if you want more tips and tricks on wedding stuff, hang out with me on Instagram at DJ Natalie Official. Definitely be sure that you have a pen or paper and something to take notes, because we're going to put everything together, and it's going to be, it'll be clunky in the beginning and it'll all come together in the end. Okay. So first things first, we want to figure out what your contract times are for all of your dream team vendors. This is the point where people end up losing money outrageously, unexpectedly, and unnecessarily. And it's just because they didn't do their due diligence. They didn't look at the contracts. They didn't put the timing in the timeline correctly based on who they hired to work. They just skipped straight to all the decisions that they made, and they left out those facts. So we're going to start with those facts. So the first thing that we want to do is we're going to work backwards. We're going to make sure that all of your contracts and your time is accurate. And the first thing that we're going to do is look at your contract with your venue. And if you have to reach out to your venue manager, that's fine. But you want to know, what time does your wedding end? You also should know if you're getting charged overtime if they go over. But what time does your wedding end? What is the last time they are going to turn the lights on and kick everybody out? That's the time we want to work backwards from. Okay? The next thing we want to know is, what time is your ceremony and where is it? Is it at a place of worship somewhere else and we're coming to the venue later? Or is it at the venue and it's at a totally different place, and your DJ needs to know that they have to go to the middle of a golf course and set up a ceremony system? You want to have that information as well. Okay, that's where we're going to start. You also want to know what time your photographer finishes and what time your DJ or band finishes. So typically 5 or 6 hours in their package. And you want to know when that starts from. So in my case, and this is different for everybody, so you want to ask them. But in my case, my contract time starts at the time the ceremony starts if I'm doing the ceremony. If I'm not doing the ceremony, then it starts at the time the cocktail hour starts. So then we start calculating from there. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that your DJ or band contract starts at the time that you need them to for the ceremony, and calculate whether it's 5 or 6 hours, and it ends the same time that your invitation said and that your venue said that they are done. The end time is done. If you need to book extra time, do some overtime, it is cheaper to do that before the day of. So this is why people get stuck. So if you look at this today and you're like, uh-oh, my DJ contract ends at 10:30 and my venue and my invitations say midnight, then you're going to want to call your DJ and say, hey, I need extra time because this is not right. Then we're going to go through all that. Okay. The other part of that we want to know is your photographer, and if you have a videographer, what time are they done? The reason that this is important is because we want to put the timeline together and make sure that all the moments we get, we're ready for them. And we're not buying an extra hour at the end of the night for the photographer for extra money because we need them to stay and we need to beg them to stay to be able to shoot the first dance because something happened. And so we want to make sure that your venue time, your venue end time, your invitations and your DJ all are aligned. You want to make sure that we know what time your photographer ends, and we want to know what time your DJ starts. And if you have other people like live musicians or stuff like that, what time they start and what you need for them. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the ceremony. What time does the ceremony start? What time are you going down the aisle? That is the first thing that we're going to fill in on the timeline. 20 to 30 minutes before that, depending on the size of your wedding, you're going to fill in a sound check. So you're going to ask your officiant to meet the DJ, assuming that that's the case. If you're getting married in a place of worship, this does not concern you. But we're going to ask the officiant to meet the DJ a half hour, somewhere between 20 minutes and a half an hour out from the start of the ceremony to do a sound check. Then we're going to have the DJ play prelude music, or if you have live musicians playing prelude music, they'll do that next. Prelude music is the music that is playing while your guests come in to the ceremony, while they're waiting for the ceremony to start. So typically, if you hire live musicians, they'll have a repertoire and they'll give you a list of music that they know, and then you check off what songs you want. If you have a DJ, that's not something that anybody should be really spending their time on unless they've created a very specific theme for their wedding and they want that. So I have had couples say, I want orchestra music and from this movie and whatever, and for the prelude music. And if that's you, just make sure that you communicate that. If that's not you, just ask, what do you normally play? Or you can say, oh, I love classical music that is covering pop music, or whatever you like. You can say that. But if you don't have a strong opinion, that's not something you need to waste any time on. Okay, so we are going to have the half-hour mark, say, for the officiant to do a sound check. Then we're going to do the prelude music, and then the ceremony starts at whatever time that is, okay? Now let's talk about the ceremony. We have some music that we need to decide on for the ceremony. We have the processional, which is the wedding party walking down the aisle, and then, of course, the bride's march. And it is, depending on how many people you have, you might need an extra song. We don't change the songs for every person or anything like that. We want to make sure that it's really cohesive and streamlined and beautiful. And so you'll choose whatever song you want for the bridal party, or the wedding party, I should say, to walk down the aisle. Sometimes the groom, if there's a groom, he wants a song of his own, and that's fine. If you're having parents and family members and people walk down the aisle, that's all, you can play another song for them and then another song for the wedding party. But you want to figure out what you want in that case. So when it comes to walking down the aisle, if you hire the officiant separately, typically they start at the front where the microphone is at the front of the ceremony. If the officiant is a friend or a family member, you might have them walk down the aisle. And typically, and you might, even if you hire them, you might have that, but you want to decide what you want. Do you want them to walk down the aisle and that's how the guests know that we're about to start? Or do you want the groom, if there's a groom, to walk down the aisle and that's how the guests know that we're starting? So you have your people walk down the aisle in whatever order. You choose your processional music, and then you choose your song for the bridal march. Once everybody gets down the aisle and we're all set up there, we want to know how long the ceremony is, of course. Typically, it's under 30 minutes if it's not a religious ceremony. So then you also want to pick a recessional song. So the processional song and the bridal march, you can pick whatever you want. Sometimes people go the classical route. Sometimes people go the pop route. Just depends on what the vibe is that you want. But for the recessional, which is the song at the end after you're pronounced married, then the recessional is the song that is like, you want it to be higher energy. It doesn't have to be like crazy EDM house music, but you definitely want it to be a higher energy, celebratory vibe song. And so I've had people choose everything from Signed, Sealed, Delivered by Stevie Wonder to Paris by Kanye and Jay-Z. So it really depends on just your taste and what you like. But you are going to want to choose music for the processional, music for the bridal march, and music for the recessional. Then we say a half an hour, and then the cocktail hour starts at the next time frame. If you are having pictures for cocktail hour, then you are going to want to make sure that the people in your family or whoever needs to take pictures know that they're going to stay there. Then we're going to invite everybody to the cocktail hour. When it comes to the cocktail hour, usually it's an hour, a dedicated hour. You might change things based on whatever, but it's usually a dedicated hour. So if the wedding starts at 5:30 to 6:30 is cocktail hour. Cocktail hour, when it comes to music, you want to go with a vibe and not necessarily picking a bunch of music. The cocktail hour is the first time that people really get to see each other and talk and reconnect after probably not seeing each other for a while. We're all drinking and having a good time and eating food and just like really enjoying each other's company. Nobody's really listening to the music unless it's a live musician. So I would never put music that I really wanted to hear in the cocktail hour. I would just say, this is the vibe that I want. If you're hiring a live musician, they take care of that anyway. It's just what they know. But if your DJ is playing cocktail hour music, just say, hey, I really like jazz, or I really like easy listening, or I really kind of want a higher energy pop music, but not dancey music yet, because I want to save that for the dance floor. So just pick whatever makes the most sense to you for the vibe. If you have a theme, then tell the person that too, so that you can incorporate that. And if you are creating your own playlist, then have at it. But like I said, just don't put anything that you really want to hear in the cocktail hour, because you probably will not be around. I also suggest that this depends on if you're going to take a lot of pictures or not. I don't suggest that you go to the cocktail hour. Let people go have a good time. Make sure that you tell the caterer or your wedding planner or your maid of honor or somebody that they need to bring you food and drinks to wherever you're going to be. So hopefully you get a bridal suite and you can go take a little bit of a relax, have a moment together by yourselves after you get married. But even if you don't have that, you're going to take pictures the whole time, have somebody bring you food, okay? Then we're going to talk about the grand entrance. The grand entrance is in my opinion, just a peak moment of the night. It's the main transition between the ceremony, which is why we are all here, and the party, which is what we're all ready to do now. So the grand entrance, so I talk a lot about this when I'm helping people with their weddings. We want to consider the trajectory of the night. So the energy, as a DJ, like that's what we do, is we watch the energy, we play off what the vibe is of the people. We make sure that the atmosphere is upholding to the vision that the couple had for their wedding. And the way that we do that is we really consider how we're communicating experiences and directions to all of our guests. So if you think about it this way, we've got 200 people in a room, say, if we have to ask for everybody's attention 20 different times, like, hey, everybody, hey, yep, can I have your attention? Oh, great. Okay, yep, can I have your attention? Yes. Time to do the first dance. Great, we have the first dance, and then that's it. And then you just go sit down, and it's even awkward me explaining this to you. Same thing cutting the cake or anything like that. So what we want to do is be very strategic with what moments we want. So in this video, I'm going to use a lot of the typical moments that happen in a wedding, but you can feel free to choose which ones you want, of course, to make it yours, and plug and play them how you think it makes the most sense for what you're trying to do. But what we want to do is give enough moments that we ride the energy out to the next moment, but we don't want to overwhelm people, so we don't want to do 20 things all at once, but we also don't want it to be one and then have it be flat and then we have to waste a bunch of time getting their attention again. 3 to 5, depending on where we are in the day, makes a lot of sense and works really well. The MC is going to invite everybody to move from the cocktail hour into the dinner, and they're going to find their seats. Once everybody's ready, we're going to introduce the new couple, and you're also going to decide who is going to be introduced into the wedding. So obviously the two of you are. Are you going to have your wedding party? Are you going to have parents? Are you going to have grandparents? Is there anybody else that needs to be introduced into this thing that is significant enough that we want to call it out? That is up to you. What I will say is whoever you decide, the traditional way, if you're having everybody, would be grandparents, then parents, bride's parents always first, and then we go into the wedding party, and then the two of you. So think about this on a small scale. We were just talking about the energy. We want this to lead up to your grand entrance. So We start with the grandparents and we build up. So in order to build up, we don't want to make it clunky by having a bunch of different songs. So you want to choose a song. You might have separate songs for parents versus the bridal party. You want to really make sure that the energy is building. And so, and leading up to you. So we might play a song for the family, maybe the different families, whatever. But then the wedding party, if you want to introduce them, you have a couple of different options. The traditional way is to introduce them in the same order that they came down the aisle with you. Sometimes people don't like that because that's not necessarily their significant other. It's just how we do the wedding. And they would like to separate it. A big thing lately has been the bridesmaids and the groomsmen come out separately. So it would be like, led by the maid of honor, so-and-so, let's hear it for all the bridesmaids. And then you can name them or just say that. And then the bridesmaids come out, they'll have one song, and then we change it for the groomsmen and then do the same thing. Led by the best man, so-and-so, let's hear it for all the groomsmen. And then the groomsmen come out. Another way to do it that is if you want them to be honored, but you don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time calling all of them out, is to just have one big group come out. Like, let's hear it for the wedding party. And then they come out and bring the energy. Sometimes they have signs. Sometimes they have like whatever they're going to do. And then if they make one of the tunnels that you're going to run through or something like that, however you want to do that, just make sure that you're building the energy to the point where we're going to introduce you. So decide on who we're going to introduce for the grand entrance and in what order and how that's going to go. And then pick music accordingly. So try to have as little music changes as possible. You definitely want to have your own song. So don't add your song to like the wedding party. We want to change it up for that. So that's part one. So then we're going to do the grand entrance. You want to decide how you want to be introduced. So you want to communicate that to your MC. So if you want to be introduced as just your first names, or you want to do your last name if you're taking a last name, however you want to do that, just make sure that you communicate how you want to be referred to and introduced once you're married. Then we're going to say, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our newly married couple. And then you guys come out and everybody's cheering and the energy is really high. And naturally what's going to happen is, like anything, they're going to be clapping, they're going to lose a little bit of energy, and the energy comes down to here just a little bit. And at that point, we want to take that and bring in a new moment, okay? So the MC will say, in this case, I'm going to use the cake. Ladies and gentlemen, please bring your attention to the cake. Our couple is now going to cut their cake. So then you can either transition a song if you want a different song, or if you want to keep the song that you came out to, that's fine too, but you need something playing in the background. And then you're going to go to the cake, if you're cutting a cake. Have your whole moment. The people are still engaged. They're still with you. The energy, we're still with it. And then you have your whole moment. The photographer takes the picture at the end. Everybody sees that you're done with that. They start clapping. The catering team comes and takes the cake out. The reason that we do a cake cutting, by the way, early in the night is typically, sometimes people refuse because that you know, if you spend a lot of money on the cake and you want it to be a focal point, then that's what it is. But the catering team, if they're cutting the cake for all the guests, that it's very clunky if we cut the cake and then they take it out and then they have to cut it in 5 minutes and bring all the cake out. So what they try to get you to cut the cake earlier so that they can then be ready. They can cut the cake while everybody's eating dinner, and then it's ready to be passed out and nobody notices the difference in the time. So we're going to then go ahead and we'll say, you know, let's say, okay, we cut the cake. Everybody starts clapping. The catering team comes and moves the cake out of the way. We leverage that energy again. And we say, ladies and gentlemen, please bring your attention to the dance floor so our newly married couple can share their first dance as, if it's a husband and wife, as husband and wife. And then the energy comes down a little bit because now we're moving into dinner, right? So, and typically that's a slow song. So you go and you have your first dance, you have that full experience. Everybody in the room is engaged with you. They feel like they're a part of this with you. They're on that journey with you. And then the first dance is something that most people want to see and be a part of. And so nobody's like missing it. Nobody's like, oh, I ate dinner and now I'm outside doing whatever, or going to get a drink or going to the bathroom or whatever. They get to really feel like they are at this wedding and experiencing it with you. So that's one of the reasons I like to do the first dance before dinner, if possible. That, and you don't have to worry about spilling food on yourself. So there's that. But so then we have the first dance, and so obviously you're going to need a song for your first dance, and then the first dance is over, everybody claps, and then you go sit down. Now we want to transition into dinner, so we're going to do some kind of welcome speech. The welcome speech can be somebody else on your behalf, welcoming the family or welcoming everybody into the wedding. Or that can be, if you're hosting it, you can do your thank you speech at that time. So the MC will bring you the microphone, you'll stand up at your table, you'll do just a quick, however you want to do it, thank you so much for coming, blah, 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 blah. Have that moment where you get to talk to everybody. If you're doing a blessing, then that would come right after this welcome speech, and then we eat dinner. So we eat dinner, and we're going to give ourselves at least an hour for the timing for dinner. And it might be more if you're having a really big wedding, but we have at least an hour. It'll be different based on if it's buffet or passed out courses or family style. But what we want to do here is, this is the time that's important. This is the only time in the timeline. People get really stuck in the weeds with the timeline, and they're like, oh, 6:36, we have to do this. No, the most important is that it's in the right order and that we're reasonably in a right time frame. The couple things that stick out that are actually very, very important that the right time happens is, one, the food. You want the food to come out how it was prepared. And two, you want the contract, like the photographer and the videographer end time. You want that to be there. You want to make sure that all of your moments that you need to get end before their contracted end time. So other than that, we just want to make sure that the timeline is in fact in the right order and, like I said, conducive to carrying the energy of the night. So we have our welcome speech or thank you speech. Maybe we'll have a blessing. We invite people to have dinner. If we are having toasts, my strongest suggestion is to start those as early as possible. So if you have a salad course that's already out, fine. If you want to start that at the top of the entrees coming out, that's fine. If you have a buffet, you want to start those as soon as everybody has a plate of food, or almost everybody has a plate of food. And the reason is, when it comes to toasts, that we have the least control over that. We don't know how long. You can tell them all day that they have 2 minutes. And if they're a good speaker, maybe they'll stick within the 2 minutes, or maybe it'll be less. And if they're nervous and emotional or very verbose, like me in this video, they will maybe take longer than anticipated. And nobody's sitting there with a watch and a time clock, so they just don't even know if they're going over or not. So having that little control, we want to make sure that the toasts are in a place where we have room to play with if we need to. So for example, if you have more than 2 toasts, let's say sometimes people have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or they let people just come up and make toast randomly. If that's your situation, start it earlier. Because what we can do is, if the caterer comes to me and says, hey, the next course is ready, can we pause? Yes, no problem. So after that speech, we pause. I'll tell the next person who's set to speak, hey, just give us a second. The servers are going to clear the table. They're going to bring out the next course, and then we'll bring you up for your speech. No problem. And then we can kind of keep it going that way. Because again, remember, we want the food to come out when it's ready and how it's supposed to be served. So that is priority over people speaking. Sometimes people want to put the speeches at the end of the dinner because they don't want people to be eating during the speech. And I understand why that happens, but I definitely don't suggest it, because it is very hard to control that. And also the energy in the room goes down a lot when that happens. And it's harder to come back and get people on the dance floor right after that. The one exception to that rule is if you have to ask people to move to a different room to get to the dance floor. And if that's the case, sometimes it's good to use a speech. So now in this case, it might be your thank you speech, or maybe it'll be just like 1 or 2 if it's like the maid of honor and best man, but I wouldn't have more than that. But what we would do is we would leverage that to get people to move. So we would say, all right, ladies and gentlemen, if you could please join us, we're going to do a toast in this room over here or outside. Please make your way outside so that we can do that. And then that's how we move them strategically to where the dancing will be. So Think about that for your toasts. Who do you want to toast? Who wants to toast? Who's a good speaker? Who's not? What order do you want them to go in? And just ask them. Like sometimes there's an order if you're trying to go really traditionally, but typically it's just based on who's the most comfortable and who's a strong speaker and who's not. Put the less strong people in the middle. It's best to have a strong speaker kick things off, and another strong speaker end it. So if you have the capability of doing that, that makes it a little bit easier. But if you don't, that's okay too. You just let them do what they're going to do. But like I said, start it as early as possible in the dinner. All right, so then after dinner, we want to put a 15-minute at least time frame buffer that's specific to dessert only. If you are very specific about wanting to have a dessert time on your timeline, then you're going to do more time, because this is actually a secret of the wedding industry that I'm unlocking for you today, which is it's a live event. Things happen all the time. We're constantly calling audibles to try and make sure that everything is the way that it's supposed to be, and we have to just renegotiate how we're going to do what and make sure that we get everything that we need in that time frame, that's what all the vendors are doing the entire time. So what we want to do is we want to build a 15-minute buffer time that's just for dessert. It doesn't matter unless it matters to you. If it matters to you, then this is different. But if it doesn't matter to you, it really doesn't matter if people are eating cake later, if they're eating cake while a parent dance is going on, or while we open up the dance floor, or the first dance if you're doing it later. Like, that doesn't really matter. But what does matter is that if something goes awry because of life and a live event, the nature of a live event, you bought yourself 15 minutes that we can use that for. So now we're still in time. We're still in the right time. Your photographer time isn't impeded. And we don't have to just sit and eat dessert. We can keep things moving along. If you are investing in a very significant dessert experience and you do need time for that, add 15 minutes to whatever it is that you do for that. So if you have a whole 30-minute thing, make dessert 45 minutes. And I know that sounds like a lot, but I promise it'll all come together. You'll see. But if not, 15 minutes is fine. Doesn't really matter how many people you have. Just you want that 15-minute buffer. All right. So then after the dessert, we're going to move into our dancing portion of the night. So typically, if we did our first dance earlier, the next things would be, if you're doing this, it would be parent dances. The traditional way is father-daughter first and then mother-son. Sometimes people are doing their first dance to open up the dance floor. Sometimes we do the first dance earlier. Sometimes the typical is to do the first dance first and then the parent dances if you're going to do that together. And the reason is, make sure that you're doing sometimes people do the first dance and then people miss it. And that's a part of the night that people typically really want to be a part of. So if you're going to do the first dance, make sure that you do it in a time frame where like it's ready, where you get everybody ready for it so that they don't have to do any work to be there. Like, you're not like, oh my God, I'm missing the first dance. So obviously you're going to pick a song for your first dance. If you're doing parent dances, you're going to have a song for each. Something that you want to communicate to your DJ or band is, do you want the whole song or not? If you are choreographing a first dance, then they need to know, first of all, the track. They need the track, because if you're doing it, they have to have the right version of the song. And if you're choreographing it, you need to give them the track, or give them the specific Spotify link or something like that. And the time frames of any information that you need to be able to do your dance. If you're not doing a choreographed dance, let your DJ or band know if you want the whole song played. Typically, I don't play the whole song for the first dance unless they're doing a choreographed dance, and that takes up the whole time. Usually I look at the moment and I'm watching them, and you can see when they're ready to be done with that moment. And instead of making them stand up there awkwardly for an extra minute and a half, I will, at the next most opportune time, fade the song out. And so, or you can kind of like give your DJ a wink or a look or something like that, like, okay, we're ready. And then they'll close it up. at the next reasonable time. Obviously, if it's in the middle of the bridge, we don't want to do that, but that's how that goes. For the parent dances, almost never do we play the whole song unless it's a really short song, or it's really important to them, or you want to get to a point in the song because that's the part that's important. If you have something like that, then you should communicate that as well to your DJ. Like, hey, this is the song that we're doing for any of these songs. This is the song that we're doing. This part of the song is really important to us. So can you just make sure that gets played? However you need that to be. Then we are going to start transitioning into the dancing portion of the night. So when you are working with a DJ or a band, if you're working with a band, you are going to look at their repertoire and choose songs that you want. You won't choose the order typically because the band leader will decide that based on the energy. They read the room similarly to how the DJ reads the room. The difference is that the band infuses a lot more energy into the room than the DJ does. The DJ reads the room and says, okay, where is everybody right now? What song would match their energy or be a little bit higher so that they could match the energy and get them onto the dance floor? A band has so much energy because it's live music and there's so many of them that it infuses into the room extra energy, which then ignites it with your guests, and that kind of draws them into the dance floor. Whoever is the person that's choosing your opening song, they're going to do that. Now, sometimes the DJ software that you get, if like the way that DJs set up their system is they might ask you what you want your kickoff song to be. Unless you have a very specific song that you're like, oh my gosh, my wedding reception has to kick off to this song because whatever. If you have that, absolutely communicate that. If you don't have that, that's not anywhere that you really need to spend time or energy trying to figure out. And the reason is we have no idea where the energy in the room is going to be. Like for the band, that might be an easier path to take. Like, yeah, hey, I want this to be the first song. Can we do that? Sure, no problem. Like I said, because the band is infusing energy into the room. The DJ typically doesn't know what the first song is going to be until they see what the energy is in the room. So let me give you an example. If you just had a 5-course meal and they're feeling very lethargic and it's going to take a little bit more something to get them to come to the dance floor, if I play Hotel Room Service by Pitbull, even if they love that song, it's going to go straight over their head. It won't hit them. It's not going to hit them and lure them to the dance floor. In fact, it might irritate them. Now, if they ate and the dinner kind of took long and a lot of the people already ate and they're already ready, like kind of doing backflips and ready to go to the dance floor and their energy's up and they're feeling a little bouncy, maybe I could start with something that high energy and that would be fine. But typically I don't start that high, but it sometimes does happen and it sometimes works that way. That just goes to show what we really want to do is we want to look at the room, and if it's going to be a medium energy song, if it's going to be a banger that is like, okay, this room is tired. We need a banger that is in a lower energy range so that it hits them, so that they feel the music and that it starts like bringing their energy up, and then we come together and dance. So that's how that works. Like when your DJs, when a DJ tells you, oh, I read the room, that's what that means. They are typically, that's what they're trying to do, is like understand what's going on, where the energy is, what song will match the energy and ignite something to start the party. So that's kind of what we're looking for. So that being said, when it comes to your kickoff song, if you have a band, sure, pick that. If you have a DJ, unless you have something that's really driving you to kick off your wedding dance party to that song, don't even bother. Like if you're trying to play the DJ and say, well, what song's good and what will get the party going? You won't know that until you're in the room and you see what energy level they have. And that depends on a lot of things. So it's very hard to tell that. So that's why I say don't even spend your time and energy on that. That's like cocktail hour. Don't spend time building a cocktail hour curated soundtrack, because that's for ambiance. If you have a DJ playing it, you can't not have sound because it'll be weird if you don't. But they're so engaged with each other that the music is secondary. On the dance floor, the music is primary. But At cocktail hour, it's secondary, and you're not going to hear it. Your dinner playlist, I should go back to that because we didn't really talk about that. Your dinner playlist should include, well, I shouldn't say should. If you have some songs that you really want to hear, and you're like, well, it's not really dancey, but I want to make sure I hear them, that's important to me, the dinner playlist is a good time to do that. Unless it really doesn't fit with the vibe that you're going for, you can add that there, and then you get a chance to like have that song that you want. But similarly, you want to have a vibe. You want to say, oh, I really like R&B, or I really like Frank Sinatra, or I want a really big mix of, I want everything from like the Cooners to Lauryn Hill to Jason Mraz to whatever. Like if you have a big eclectic mix, then that's fine too. But you want to know what you're working with for the vibe, and then you want to decide, okay, can I add stuff here? But if you're a really big music person and you're like, I want to curate the whole thing, then make sure that you put the songs that you want to hear that aren't really dancey tunes into the dinner so that you can actually hear them. Don't put them in the cocktail hour. And that's how that's going to go. We are going to move into the dance floor and how to communicate music that you like and how to communicate moments with all your vendors. So first of all, a question that I think people don't understand a lot is how long is a typical dance set? And here is a really challenging situation that happens, and this is why we want to know how long everybody's contracts are. The time frame of a dance floor depends heavily on a couple of things. One, what is your guest count? If you have 300 people, you can have a longer dance set that will be sustained for a longer period of time. If you have 100 people and they're really big partiers, you can have an average length dance floor, but even after a while, it'll be too tiring. If you have a less dancey crowd and you think people are going to do more mingling, then you don't want to have a super, super long dance set. And what that looks like in time frame is, I would say the average is between 2 and 3 hours. 3 hours is getting a little bit long if you don't have enough people to sustain the dance floor. 2 hours will give the experience of, oh, that was really fun. You want people to leave your wedding saying, oh my gosh, that was so fun, I can't believe it's over. What you don't want is people to, and yourself to be so exhausted, like, oh my God, I can't wait until it's over. I still have to, oh my God, I still have 45 minutes left. That's not the move. So less is more. It's a very, very, very long day. Nobody has as much energy as they think they're going to have. And if we're building a dance floor, we want to make sure that it's worth it for everybody to stay and hang out. That being said, sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I have 5 hours for dancing. No, 5 hours for dancing? No. I don't care if you have 500 people. We're not doing 5 hours of dancing. The longest wedding of my life had a 3.5 hour, 4 hour dance set, something like that. There's two that I'm thinking of. They were both really fun. One of them, the people stayed on the dance floor even though it was long and they were tired. The other one, they thought they would have a really, really banging 4 hour dance floor, but they only had like 65 or 75 people, which will never sustain a 4 hour dance set. That's just not it. So when you're considering your timeline and your invitation, when the event should end, 2 to 3 hours is average. Like 2.5 is a good time. If you have a ton of people, like 2 hours might be cutting it short. If you have a really lot of people, 3 hours is still good. 2.5 to 3 hours is still good. If you're getting into 3.5 and 4 hours, people are going to start leaving, and you're not going to be able to do that last moment of let's do our last song and have everybody in the room together and have that kind of really nice closing out moment. And so when it comes to that, consider that when you're figuring out the timeline of the dancing. Now, a couple of things that you want to make note of is what moments during the dancing do you need to be documented? Are you going to toss a bouquet? Are you having a specialty dance that maybe you didn't call out with the parent, like where maybe it was like a parent, maybe you're doing a parent dance, but you don't want to have official parent dances that are called out for whatever reason. all your vendors need to know that. If you're having a moment with a song, even if we're not calling out, because then I can go to the photographer and say, hey, in 5 minutes, I'm going to play that song that's for so-and-so and so-and-so. Can we make sure that everybody's in the room and ready for it? And I'm not going to call it out, but just make sure that they're ready to have that moment. And then they can take pictures and do video of that. If there are songs that is like, oh, this happens at every wedding, and it's not something that's super, super late in the night, let us know that too, so we can make sure that we have all those moments documented from your photographer and videographer. If you want to do like an anniversary dance or something like that, like a slow dance, where you get to be on the dance floor slow dancing with a bunch of people, let us know that too, because then we can close the dance floor out. Sorry, we can close the photographer's time out with a slow dance, so they get a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Now, you might be wondering why the photographer leaves so early, and it's not really because they have been working all day, but in reality, pictures on the dance floor look the same from the beginning to the end, except for that they are drunker and sweatier by the end of the night. So you just need a solid 20-minute dance set for photos. And if you have lights as well, like dance floor lights, like the club lights, those also mess with the picture. So sometimes I don't even turn those on until the photographer leaves, so that he or she can get all the pictures that they need. And then we can turn it into a dance floor lighting club setting, something like that, after they leave. But we want to be strategic about that too. Like, hey, these are the moments that we have during the dancing that we want to make sure that we have photos of. So then the DJ and the photographer can work together to make sure that we have all that before they leave. So that's important. We want to think about that. And then we also want to think about, is there a late night snack? Is that going to be a thing? And also we are going to, does the MC need to announce shuttles or anything like that throughout the night? So anything like that, you want to make sure that you communicate to your MC, DJ, band leader, somebody. And of course, the photographer and videographer and DJ, if there's any of those moments that need to be called out. And if you have a wedding planner, include them on that as well. So that's kind of how everybody works together for the timeline. And then let's talk about music for a second. So when you're communicating what kind of music you want for your dance floor, we have a must playlist, a maybe playlist, which is like an inspiration playlist, and we have a do not playlist. And then we have if you are choosing your first kickoff song and your last song of the night. You definitely want to choose your last song of the night. That is something that you want to spend the time and energy on. The reason is, I think we talked about this earlier, the first impression and the last moment are what matters most, and that's what people remember the most. So if you have a really strong first impression and a really strong last moment, that is how that will carry everything really strongly. So also, if your MC announces, all right, everybody, we're having, the last song, all of that, you get to have a really great last moment. Everybody's on the dance floor together, and then that really closes out the night together. So you do want to pick your last song. And that can be, I don't suggest it being a super, super, super high energy song. It can be high energy, but just not like, it is ending, right? So unless you have an after party afterwards and you're trying to get more energy, you could do that. It doesn't have to be a slow song. It could be something that's a sing-along. Some that are really popular over the years, that have stayed popular over the years, are Wagon Wheel, Piano Man, Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, or Don't Stop Me Now, Blink 182, Lauryn Hill, Can't Take My Eyes Off of You, Stevie Wonder, Signed, Sealed, Delivered. What else? People always pick Closing Time. I guess you can see my reaction to that. I don't like it, but it's not my wedding, so do whatever you want. But people do pick that a lot. And so, think about what you want your last song to be, and then have that. When it comes to your must plays, choose 5 to 8 songs that are very, very important to you. This is not, I made a inspiration playlist on Spotify, which is great if you did that. I made an inspiration playlist on Spotify, and I picked the 5 to 8 songs in there that I think are going to be the biggest bangers. That's not what the must play is, or even your favorite ones out of the inspiration playlist. That's not what the must play is. Must play is a song that attaches to a moment that is important to you, your fiance, or a certain group of people in the room. So, for example, at every wedding in my family, we play this song and everybody gets on the dance floor together and we sing it all together and we do this whole dance. That is a must play song. My college frat or sorority or whatever group of people that I used to hang out with in college, they're all going to be here, and so we have to play our fight song or the song that is significant. That is a must-play song. This is my favorite song. This is my favorite song in the whole world, and I absolutely have to hear it at my wedding. This is a must-play song. That is the path you want to think about when you're thinking about what songs are must plays versus inspiration maybe plays. The must play list should be like 5 to 8 songs. 10 is getting a little bit much. The inspiration playlist, I've had people send me playlists that were days long. I've had people say, here's 5 songs that I like, figure it out and read the room. That's either is fine for me. However into music you are is what's going to dictate that. But it is good to give some kind of inspiration, like, oh, I really like this stuff, or I think my family will like this, or whatever. The do not playlist, here's another wedding secret unlocked. On TikTok and Instagram and all social media platforms, it has been found that a negative hook is what is working for marketing, and has been for the last couple of years. So that means the thing that stops people from scrolling is do not do this at your wedding, right? Don't make your wedding suck. Your wedding will suck if you do this. A wedding DJ is the worst job ever. Like stuff like that. And then they hook them and then they tell the story and then go moving forward. And what that has caused is a plethora of people making a do not playlist that is 100 songs long. That is insane and totally unnecessary. It is so much more helpful to tell us what you do want versus what you don't want. And if you really hate a song, or it's your song with maybe this is your second marriage and that was your first dance at your last marriage or your last wedding, or maybe it's a sad moment for your family or something's going on and you can't have that. Those are the things that you want to think about when you're talking about a do not playlist. Also, maybe you hate a certain artist. A lot of people are mad at artists depending on whatever they do in the media at any particular moment. And they don't want that person played at their wedding. Fine. That's a do not play song. That's a do not play person. If you hate line dances and you don't want the Cupid Shuffle or the Wobble or the Electric Slide or the Cha-Cha Slide or Cotton Eye Joe or any of those like group dances, that is something to say, hey, I really hate these. What I get a lot is, hey, I really hate line dances, but if somebody asks for the wobble, that's okay. But don't play it unless somebody asks for it, and don't play any of them but the wobble. Like, that's fine. But just make sure that what you're communicating is like actual helpful information and not just a list of a bunch of stuff that you don't like, because that is not helpful at all. And it makes you focus on what you don't like versus what you want, and that's not the path that we're going here. So make sure that you have all that information and that you're ready to go with that. The last thing that I want to talk about is slow songs when it comes to music for your dance floor. And slow songs are, a lot of times people are like, oh, especially right now, a lot of times people are like, oh my God, I hate slow songs. I don't want any of them. I want it to be like a nightclub, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. I will do whatever you want. I'll make it be whatever you want. One of the biggest complaints I get from the guests at people's weddings is that there's not a slow song or there's not enough slow songs. Now, I don't think that you should have 5 or 10 of them, but I do think that like somewhere between 1 and 3, depending on how long it goes and what's going on, is an appropriate way to make sure that some people will only dance to slow songs. Like maybe Uncle Joe just wants to have one slow dance with his bride from 60 years ago. Like, that stuff is important. And so I suggest having, like, the DJ can read the room for all the fast songs and for all the dancing and kind of guide the energy in the room and look at where we are and what we need. But for slow songs, you want to get what you really like. So the other thing that I suggest is to make a list of like 5 slow songs. Tell them not to play all 5. But if they choose 2 to 3 of the 5 to play to disperse throughout the night, they'll come from a list of songs that you like and that you want to dance to. Maybe you're trying to decide between 2 songs for your first dance and you choose one, but you still want to hear the other. That could be a must play. And then that would work as a slow song too. But you want to have something like that. Like I said, maybe you don't. Maybe you just want a club atmosphere, and that's fine. A lot of people do that. But if you are of the mindset of, I really want all my guests to have a good time and have a good experience, then giving them a little bit of leeway with that would probably be really helpful and go a long way. That's a moment that, you know, how often do you slow dance with your person? I mean, it's not very often, and so those moments stick out to them. So, they will to you also. So, I don't know, just my 2 cents. So, kickoff song of the night if you have it, but don't spend time on that. Last song of the night to close the night out. 5 to 8 must-play songs. A pile of maybe inspiration playlist. That could be the songs, the artist, a mix of both. Whatever do not plays are legitimately do not plays, not just a pile of stuff you don't like. Also, we could see what you don't like based on what you do like. So that's that. That's how the music goes. And then make sure that we are communicating all of the things that need to happen during the dancing. That's the part where it's a party. Nobody's really thinking about all that stuff. So just let the wedding planner, the DJ, and the photographer know, hey, these moments, we want those to happen before the photographer leaves. We got a late night snack coming at this time, and we have some shuttles that we need to be announced here and there. Another secret of the wedding industry, this one heavily depends on where you live. Sometimes a venue will charge astronomical prices if you go beyond their closing time. That costs a lot of money. And where I live, that is a thing. So I do my last song 7 minutes before, 10 if it's a really long song. And if there's an encore, like if I'm like, okay, well, I still have 2 whole minutes and they like the song and whatever, I'll do part of another song at the end if that's there. But making sure that your DJ knows this is ending at 11 o'clock. If you have to end it 2 minutes early, that's fine, but cannot go past 11 o'clock because you do not want to get a bill from the venue for going 5 minutes over because the DJ couldn't manage their time, or because your guests were like, one more song, it's fine. And then I look at you and you're like, yeah, fine, one more song. And then all of a sudden you get a bill because we went over by 5 minutes. That's not the game either. So just make sure that all of that is aligned and that you have a good idea of how that's going to go. If you have an after party, make sure the DJ knows that information so that they can invite everybody to the after party afterwards and then say, okay, everybody out of here, but you can go here. If there's anything else that I missed, you want to take this information. So here's what we do with this information. So we make our timeline. We talked about this, I think, in the beginning. We make our timeline. We send a pre-timeline to all the vendors. The vendors look at what we have so far and say, hey, this is right, this is right, this is wrong. Can we add this? Can we subtract this? Can we move this? Whatever. And then you make a finalized timeline and you send that out. We definitely want to make sure that all the vendors are on it, copied on it. All their contact information is on there. You also want to have a person to contact of the day of. That is not you. That is probably not one of your parents, and it is probably not your best man or maid of honor. It could be a job that you give to one of your bridesmaids or groomsmen. It could be somebody that you give a job to somebody who doesn't get to do a lot of jobs, but they want to be responsible for something. That could be hey, keep your phone on you. You're the emergency contact if anybody needs anything. So you want to have that. You definitely also want to make sure that you have how everybody is getting to where they need to go. So if you're getting ready separately and you have to meet somewhere, like how's everybody getting there? Did you rent a shuttle? Are we all driving separately? If we're driving separately, how are we getting to all those places? So another thing that you want to do and include on the timeline is go through the entire day from the time you wake up until the time this is over, and think about where you have to be and who has to be there and how everybody's going to get there. And that should be included in the timeline too. That's going to be important to also look at that against your shot list with your photographer, because you need to make sure that the photographer has all the people that they need at all the right times to be able to take the right pictures and get all the shots from your shot list. Once you have your timeline all set, you want to double check your contracts. So we want to do, I know I say that a lot. You would not believe how much people lose by just not doing their due diligence. So you want to make sure that you, again, look through everything and say, all right, is this all right? Venue, hey. You might find out that on your timeline, like we just did all this stuff, you might find out that you had a 4-hour dance set plugged in here, and now you're realizing, ooh, maybe that's not a good idea for my 75 party wedding. Maybe that should be more like 2 hours. What does that mean? Are we going to move things around? Or are we just going to end it earlier and make an after party? And then the people who really want to keep going can keep going. Make sure that your photographer has at least 20 to 30 minutes of dance floor footage. Sometimes they do stay later. And sometimes they split up, and they'll have a first shooter and a second shooter, and somebody will start earlier and somebody will go later. And that's fine. Then you have them for extra time. But what you really want is to make sure that you have at least 20 to 30 minutes of dancing, of the open dancing part, not the parent dances, not the first dance. 20 to 30 minutes of open dancing. Because even if we go late and mess something up, if they have 15 minutes of dancing and you have a good DJ or a good band, you'll be fine. They'll get plenty of pictures and it'll be great. But 20 to 30 minutes is a really comfortable time for them for that. The other thing that you want to know is who's bringing what to each place. So like, are you having breakfast and snacks and champagne, mimosas and stuff like that when you're getting ready with the glam squad? And if so, who's picking that up and dropping it off? Do you have your bin for your ceremony and reception, and who's dropping what off where, and how is that all getting done? If you have a wedding planner, it's probably them that's doing that. If you don't have a wedding planner and you're just like, oh, and you're doing the thing that we talked about, what not to do, is my friend and slash cousin or whoever is just really organized. So she loves weddings, so she'll be the coordinator on the day of. No. Then they're going to be running around like a chicken with their head cut off, and you're not going to have half the stuff in the place that you need it. All right, so how are we doing? How are we feeling? Comment below if you have any questions or thoughts or ideas, anything that I missed, anything that really shook you and you were like, oh, I never even thought about that. And let me know what other information I can provide that's helpful. If you're still in the market for a DJ or a band and you want to talk to me about that, I have my Calendly linked below. You can do a consultation. If you need a band, I have a band in the Midwest that is amazing. And if you need a DJ, either myself or somebody on my team that I've trained, something like that, we have people in Chicago, Detroit, Boston, New York, Rhode Island, Austin, Houston, and I also do destination weddings. If you need any of that, Calendly below. If you feel better now that we've talked, give the video a thumbs up. If you're early in the phase of planning your wedding and you feel very overwhelmed and this made you realize that you didn't know how to put all this stuff together and you're freaked out and you want to take my online course, The Wedding Lab, to plan your wedding, then that is linked below as well. If you are like, sweet, I already knew all this stuff. That's awesome. Feel good. Feel like I'm doing a good job. Kudos to you. Whatever your situation is, I hope that you have a wonderful wedding. I hope that you'll tag me on Instagram with your photos and videos at DJ Natalie Official. And yeah, congratulations on your engagement, and hope you have a great time.